Hey there, welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. My name is Seth Mayo. I'm the curator of astronomy for the Loma Planetarium. And in this episode, we're covering the dates of May 3rd through May 9th, 2021. We're going to start the episode by talking about the early morning sky quite a bit, where we're going to find the moon passing by two gas giant planets. We're then going to discuss the peak and the radiant of the annual Eta Aquarid Meteor Shower. We'll then shift our attention to the west and say farewell to Orion the Hunter. And we'll end things with a look ahead at the celestial highlights for the entire month of May. Let's get to it. As I mentioned in the introduction, the morning has some really nice things to see, especially with the solar system objects that we can find gathered in a close proximity to each other. And if we look here in the east and southeast, and I have the time set to about 5:45 a.m. local time, you'll notice the moon. That's the first thing that is easy to spot. And the moon on May 4th, of course, this is May the 4th be with you for those Star Wars fans out there. But the morning of May 4th, Tuesday, you'll find the moon that's a little less than half full, so technically a waning crescent. And you'll find that it's in between or just underneath these two orbs in the sky here. We've talked a lot about this in some previous episodes. Those are the two planets Jupiter, which you see to the left, and Saturn to the right. Jupiter will be brighter, it always is brighter than Saturn. It's bigger and closer to us. So those two planets are nice, and you'll find the moon just between them. But if we go to subsequent mornings here, you'll find the moon, of course, slides away from here. So by the 5th, you'll see a little bit less of a phase here, and kind of on the other side of Jupiter now. And we'll continue on through the 6th, the 7th, as we see an even thinner crescent, the 8th, and then by the end of the week on the 9th, you'll see it now descending into the sun, and next week on the 11th is a new moon when the backside of the moon is lit. As we continue to pay attention to this part of the early morning sky, we can expect by early to middle of this week the peak of the annual Eta Aquarid Meteor Shower. And the radiant point for this is nearby, right in this area. It's actually sitting inside the constellation Aquarius. That's why it's called the Eta Aquarids, the water bearer constellation, of course, one of the signs of the zodiac. Not one of the brighter constellations, but it's pretty famous nonetheless. And it's named Eta Aquarids because it's actually sitting next to the radiant point, the star Eta Aquarii that we find there. So this radiant point was named after a specific point in Aquarius. This is an annual meteor shower that always occurs at the beginning of May, and it really favors the southern hemisphere where up to 60 meteors per hour can be seen. In the northern hemisphere, you can also see it, but you can expect less per hour, maybe 10 to 30, just depends on the night and the conditions of this meteor shower. You also have to worry about the moon nearby. You can see the crescent moon here in the morning of the 5th. But again, you don't just see meteors here. This is the radiant point, which means you'll see them streak across the entire sky, but they radiate from this point here in Aquarius. And the Eta Aquarids derive from the debris trail of that famous comet known as Halley's Comet, or Comet Halley, named after that English astronomer Edmund Halley, who did not discover Comet Halley, but he made predictions early on of the orbit and the path and could predict when you could see it again. And he was correct. When he predicted that the comet would be seen in 1758, he actually died before that in 1742, but since his prediction was correct, this comet was named after him. So he made a prediction that this comet had a period of about 75 to 76 years, so it's considered a short period comet. Here in meteorshowers.org, we can see the path of Comet Halley and the debris trail it leaves behind in the solar system. So again, Eta Aquarids comes from Earth hitting the debris trail of Comet Halley in early May, and we can see the orbit of Halley here. Again, it has a period of about 75, 76 years. For those who remember, back in 1986 was the last time it was seen here on Earth, and the next time we're going to see it is in 2061. And if this animation is correct, right now, approximately, the comet, which you can see in its little pink or purple dot right here, is about at its aphelion, so its farthest distance from the sun. Perihelion is when it's closest to us, and that will happen again around 2061, actually middle of 2061, when we'll see it pass into the inner solar system and then possibly become visible in our sky. But what is cool is that we know that this famous comet is responsible for this annual meteor shower. So for the Eta Aquarids, it's not the perfect conditions because the brightness of the moon nearby, but the radiant is in an interesting location near Jupiter, Saturn, and is always worth checking out if you're up early in the morning, especially on the 5th, even on the 6th, and around the dates of this time, usually a week around the peak is fine because this meteor shower actually runs from April 19th through May 28th, so we have a decent amount of time to see it. Now, as I said, this meteor shower is produced by Comet Halley, but Comet Halley also is responsible for the Orionids, which occur in October, an even more famous meteor shower that we find at that time of the year. Speaking of the Orionids, and of course Orion the Hunter, where that meteor shower emanates from, this week and for this time of the year, we can say farewell to this mighty constellation that we find very low in the west and southwest here, just after sunset, so we don't have much time to see it, but it's still there. Those stars are so great. Of course, you have the belt stars here, shoulders, the right shoulder star, the red supergiant star Betelgeuse, the legs down here with the very bright blue star at the left foot or knee called Rigel. It is a wonderful constellation, so I'm always sad to see it go, and I love pointing it out to other people and looking at it, especially through a telescope too. That Orion Nebula is always so great to find. But you'll find Orion again rising in the early morning in late summer as it then moves towards that side of the sky. But for now, we can start to see it descend in the west, and we'll look forward to it later in the year. Looking ahead for the entire month of May, when it comes to the great celestial objects and constellations that we can find, we can see that if we look towards the west here, many more of those wintertime stars are descending in that area. By the middle of the month, you'll find Orion is really far below the horizon, around 9 o'clock local time here. You'll find Sirius, the brightest star in the sky there, that Orion's belt usually points to, getting pretty low, but still holding on for visibility. You'll find Gemini is a little bit higher up, so we have a little more time to see Gemini. And within Gemini, and this is on the 15th, so this is when the moon is very close to the planet Mars. So Mars has been moving through Gemini. It's moving through it this month, and we'll kind of continue that path through this zodiac constellation there. And if you look more to the northwest, you can still see the really bright star Capella, part of Auriga the Charioteer that we noticed there. So those winter stars are really descending in the west. A couple of them are still holding on after sunset, but then we can continue to look really high in the sky. And by May, straight up, once it's dark out, is that wonderful spring constellation of Leo the Lion. There's the head of Leo looking like a hook or backwards question mark. We mentioned a couple episodes ago, that's called the sickle. That's the asterism for Leo. And there's Leo. You can see some of the other constellations we were pointing out earlier. We'll continue on this path as we head over towards the east. We'll find Virgo, the maiden, underneath Leo with the bright star Spica that we can see there. And we can continue this direction here to the northeast, where we find the brightest star in the northern hemisphere, which is Arcturus, really famous star as part of Boötes, the herdsman. And not far from that, we can see the Big Dipper. You can see the handle very close to Boötes. There's the bowl. And as we also mentioned before, the Big Dipper is part of Ursa Major, the Great Bear. This is a great time to see this bear, and especially the Big Dipper, which points us to that North Star, as we always talk about. These two stars here, Dubhe and Merak, point us to the North Star there, which is also called Polaris, and that is also part of Little Dipper and the Little Bear, known as Ursa Minor. So those spring stars are really shining. They really are taking over the night sky show here, taking center stage in this time of the year. But there is a chance to see some of those winter stars in the west if you catch the area of the sky. Maybe if you're watching the sunset, and just afterwards you'll still see some really, really bright stars over there. And again, Mars is still possible in that area too. So take a look at that nice planet. By the end of this month, we have a nice celestial event occurring with the moon. It'll be a full moon on the morning of May 26th, and also another one of those super moons when the moon is full and a little closer to us. And to add to that, there's also a total lunar eclipse occurring. For us here in Florida on the east coast of the United States, we're only going to catch a tiny little portion of this eclipse. It's just going to begin a partial eclipse, and that's when the moon passes into Earth's shadow. You see a little bit of it darken as it does so, and that's when the Earth, Moon, and Sun line up in a nice straight line called a syzygy. So this is very early morning before sunrise, looking toward the southwestern part of our sky. And right at about 5:45, around there, is when the main part of the shadow starts to make its way over the moon. It's called the umbra. And so right around there, you'll see it even in stellarium. It'll show just a bit of it if you look carefully here. We'll just get a little fraction of it as it sets. So it's going to be really, really tough for us to see it on this side of the planet here. And if you look carefully, you'll see a little bit of the shadow of the Earth there. But you notice the moon is really, really low. So that is quite tough to see from our location. This information from NASA does give us a little more explanation for this particular lunar eclipse on May 26, 2021. And you'll notice here the moon, the diagram of Earth's shadow, the umbra, the main part of the shadow here, and some times of when you can see the different parts of the eclipse occur. But down here is a map that gives you an idea of where in the world it's visible from. You'll notice here in Africa and Europe and in parts of Asia, there is no eclipse visible. Here in the United States, on the left side here, you can see for us in Florida on the East Coast, the eclipse is visible at moonset, as it says there. But the farther west you go in the US, the better chance of seeing it. You'll have more time to see it above the western horizon. Now, if you make your way to the Pacific Ocean, that's where you're going to really see it. And you'll notice little Hawaii right here. So Hawaii has a really great view of this eclipse. They'll see the entire thing from the beginning to the end. You'll notice it says all eclipse visible, and we'll make our way to the other side of the world, parts of Australia here, and islands in the Pacific is where it's going to be really, really nice. But even in the United States here and even South America, you'll notice kind of on the more western side of those places, you'll have a better view of this total lunar eclipse. That's it for another edition of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. And as always, I'd like to say stop by our Museum of Arts and Sciences in Daytona Beach. And of course, the Loman Planetarium. We're running shows every day. We're doing them safely. Check out our website for more information. We'd love to see you back here again. Take care. May the 4th be with you. And of course, happy stargazing.